The OG SNK fighting game series and the one that went toe-to-toe with Street Fighter II back in the 90s, Fatal Fury has been dormant for more than 25 years, leaving Street Fighter without its most comparable SNK competition for far too long. And that's what Fatal Fury City of the Wolves brings to the table. A more direct alternative to Street Fighter VI, one that is similar in its gameplay structure, but without neutral skipping system mechanics, drive impacts, and throw loops. It's missing a few modern-day fighting game features that should be standard at this point, and its UI is lacking to say the least, but in all the areas that matter the most, City of the Wolves hits like a red line Buster Wolf to the face. Like its 90s predecessors, City of the Wolves is a 4-button fire that gives you a light punch, heavy punch, light kick, and heavy kick, with close and far versions of each of those buttons. One big thing that separates it from Street Fighter VI and several other modern fighting games is that there are no universal ways to easily get in on an opponent. There are no shared high-speed dash-ups that let you keep your turn even if they're blocked, no universal vanishing teleports, and no projectile invulnerable quicksteps. Characters still have plenty of unique options to approach, but all of them carry significant risk. And while I personally don't mind a good neutral skip, I still greatly enjoy that larger focus on the mental chess game of trying to get a feel for how your opponent will approach and reacting accordingly. It also makes the characters that do have the ability to cover ground very quickly and safely feel a lot more unique among the rest of the cast. New to City of the Wolves is the Rev Meter, which works very similarly to how the Drive Meter functions in Street Fighter VI. Only you're actually building it up instead of depleting it. Once you hit 100% through a combination of using EX moves, Rev blows, and blocking attacks without letting the Rev meter cool down, you'll overheat, which is a very bad state to be in. During this time, you can't use any Rev techniques, and your guard gauge will deplete every time you block an attack. And if that runs out, your guard will be broken, and you'll be open to a free combo from your foe. It's a great system that has me making very important meter management decisions on the fly. Since you can chain EX special moves into each other in order to squeeze out more damage when you land a hit, that gauge can rise very quickly over the course of just a single combo. That pushed me to ask myself whether it was worth fully cashing out on a big combo but risk overheating, or ending the combo early and saving some of that gauge for the rest of the round.
Get ready, fight!
The only part of the equation that I'm not fully on board with are Rev blows. These armored attacks do a sizable amount of damage even if they don't crumple the opponent by hitting as a counter, are safe on block, and only cost 17% of your Rev meter, meaning they can be used pretty liberally without much consequence. Of course, they're not unbeatable. Like drive impacts from Street Fighter VI, the best way to counter them is with a Rev blow of your own, which will turn the tide and give you a free combo opportunity. Unlike drive impacts though, Rev blows can only be used during a special buff called Selective Potential Gear, or SPG for short, which is only active while in your choice of either the start, middle, or end portion of your health bar. If the opponent has their SPG set at the beginning of their life bar, and you have it set anywhere else, it can feel straight up bad trying to defend against Rev blows, since you don't have access to your best response. There are other defensive options, like throws, dodge attacks, and supers, but none that really match the ease and reward of the attacker just throwing a Rev blow out there. At higher levels, you'll see people canceling their dodge attack with a feint and getting full combos off of that, but the timing window for this is very tight, and it feels like there's no good answer for this move at low to mid-level play. Outside of that one relatively small issue, however, the actual fighting in City of the Wolves is excellent. There's a great flexibility in the combo design. You can either go for really reliable and easy damage just by stringing a couple of EX special moves together, like this, or a more execution-heavy combo that incorporates techniques like special move breaking and feints, like this. This lets you weigh the potential of an increased reward against a much higher chance of dropping a combo however you want. The City of the Wolves roster is a respectable 17 strong at launch, and it is a mechanically diverse cast that covers most of the original Mark of the Wolves roster, along with 4 newcomers. 2 of those newcomers, Preacha and Vox Reaper, are excellent without any caveats. Preacha is an easy to pick up and play Muay Thai scientist with flashy and satisfying combos and a well-rounded skill set, while Vox Reaper is just rushdown personified. I personally have been spending the most time with Terry and Hokuto Maru. Terry because of the familiarity I have with him from other games, and Hokuto Maru for the sheer variety of approach options he has. He can double jump, teleport while in the air, and use Akuma-like air projectiles to both threaten from afar and alter his jump arc to bait out anti-airs. Then there are the guest characters. Real-world soccer pro Cristiano Ronaldo, and real-world DJ Salvatore Ganacci. To get the good out of the way first, they are at least cool characters mechanically. Ronaldo's main gimmick is that all of his normal attacks are soccer techniques that can not only damage the opponent on their own, but also be used to hit a soccer ball that can be summoned with one of his special moves. This can lead to some truly wild setups that force you to block the ball and then predict where Ronaldo is going to hit you from. Salvatore, on the other hand, is largely a gag character, with moves taken directly from his music videos, but at least they're very entertaining to look at. Like, look at this goofy-ass super.
Get down. To my groove. Pump it. Love and peace. Love is all you need.
But here's the thing, very little was done to make these characters feel like they belong in Fatal Fury, especially Ronaldo. Salvatore at least has his own story in the arcade and episodes of Southtown single-player modes, but Ronaldo is completely absent from both. Not to mention their visual designs are too boring to match the flash and flare of someone like B. Jani or Kain. It's hard not to feel like these characters would have been better suited as optional DLC, like most guest characters tend to be, which would have freed up more spots for characters that actually belong in Southtown. As far as the rest of the package goes, the single-player options in City of the Wolves are fun, even if they are pretty basic. The first is the classic arcade mode that works as you would expect, and as far as arcade modes go, it's actually pretty solid, especially for those who are already familiar with Fatal Fury lore. Without going into spoilers, there are some great payoffs and fun character moments for longtime fans. The marquee single-player option is Episodes of Southtown. This RPG-inspired mode lets you play through a more substantial version of a character's story, and you'll gain experience with each battle that then lets you level up and become stronger, increasing your stats and giving you access to new skills and abilities. It's a solid diversion that adds some very welcome light progression and RPG elements while giving each character's story a more satisfying beginning, middle, and end. However, City of the Wolves could have used some extra attention in its teaching tools. There is a passable tutorial that covers all of the mechanics, but it doesn't do a great job of explaining the context or usage of many of its more advanced techniques. Defending against the aforementioned rev blow is one example, but it also doesn't do a great job of explaining the uses of things like feints and breaks. On the online side of things, the most important question to ask when it comes to a modern fighting game is, does it have rollback netcode? The second most important question is then, is it good rollback netcode? For City of the Wolves, the answer to those two questions are yes, and for the most part during my experience with both the betas and a handful of matches on the full game's pre-launch servers, online felt generally pretty good. But the best netcodes are able to make a bad connection still feel playable, and that definitely wasn't the case during the worst of what I saw. I had one match with 8 frames of delay that felt like I was moving through sludge, and another where my button inputs just occasionally wouldn't go through. Most of the usual suite of options are otherwise here and accounted for. There are ranked matches, casual matches, room matches, and a replay theater to watch both your own replays and public ones, though there's no way to filter or search for replays featuring a specific character. Unfortunately, the UI to navigate through these menus is some of the worst I've seen in a fighting game, with the biggest offender being the room match menu that for some reason needs to be controlled with a slow-moving mouse cursor and has all the visual appeal of an Excel document. In the grand scheme of things, it's not a huge deal, and the lobby itself is still functional in all the ways I'd expect, but still, it's surprising to see in a game that otherwise drips with style once you're in a match. When it comes to all of the most important parts of a fighting game, Fatal Fury City of the Wolves is up there with the best of the genre. Its fighting system is a wonderful update to the classic SNK style of one-on-one combat that feels similar to Street Fighter 6, but just different enough to exist as an alternative. The roster of 17 is varied and interesting, even with the strange addition of 2 real-life guest characters, and its netcode, while not on the same level as some modern fighting games like Guilty Gear Strive for example, is at least relatively close to it. Many things around the rock-solid center are a bit behind the times, from the bare minimum teaching tools to an ugly menu UI that can be frustrating to engage with. But while that means Fatal Fury has some cobwebs to shake off from its 25-year hibernation, the end result is still an excellent return to the fighting game scene.
I can do this all day. Just getting started.
Executive Reviews editor Tom Marks here with Mitchell Saltzman, our reviewer of Fatal Fury and reviewer extraordinaire of fighting games for us. In general, you reviewed Street Fighter 6, Mortal Kombat 1, Grand Blue Fantasy Versus. You've also reviewed big action games for us beyond the fighting game space of Elden Ring, Final Fantasy 16, Bayonetta 3, all over the punchy space. Mitchell, let's talk about Fatal Fury. Let's talk about your fighting game tastes in general. So first of all, obviously you're a fan of this game. What drew you to this one? Why did you want to review Fatal Fury?
Yeah, I would say, the two genres that are kind of like my comfort place are fighting games and kind of straight up pure action games like Devil May Cry, like Final Fantasy 16. A lot of games of those ilk. Fatal Fury is a series that I was always kind of aware of, growing up, but I never really got super into it until I started playing King of Fighters and then, learned about the history of King of Fighters and how it's kind of like, the Super Smash Brothers of SNK. It takes all their different fighting game series and puts them all together.
Let's talk about your fighting game tastes in general. What is you mentioned your comfort zone for genres, but what is your go-to series or style? Is it a tag fighter? Is it a 1v1 fighter? You play a lot. You play a broad spectrum of fighting games. But what is if you had to pick one and kill all the others, what do you think that would go to?
It is definitely, 2D, one-on-one, Street Fighter style, not too crazy with the movement options. I like grounded, kind of fundamentals driven. Again, I talk about it in the review, but I like kind of like the feeling out process of neutral, going back and forth, trying to react to whatever it is your opponent is doing. I still like the other styles of fighting games. I still like Dragon Ball FighterZ. I still like, Blaze Blue, Guilty Gear Strive. I love Guilty Gear Strive. But as far as games like Marvel vs. Capcom go, where, it's just so many crazy things that an opponent can do to you, those are probably less my style of fighting games. Now, Fatal Fury has really damaging combos too, but the issue is you have to dump literally all of your resources into it. And if you dump all of your resources into it, then you are in a very bad state when you come out of that combo. So it's very risk reward heavy in that regard. Fatal Fury is very much my style of fighting game for sure.
What do you think if somebody is really into a certain fighting game right now, they should go probably check this one out as well beyond Street Fighter? Or similarly, if they find that they really like this game, what are some other fighting games you might recommend to them beyond Street Fighter 6? Because, everyone knows Street Fighter 6. That's a known quantity here.
There's a couple other fighting games that are kind of more on the indie kind of scene that I think would serve as good jumping off points. If you're playing under Night in Birth, I think Fatal Fury is a good game to get into as well. There's also Mortal Kombat, obviously. Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter also have had a very strong rivalry going back all the way to the 90s.
Is there anything, you touched on some of this stuff too, but there's some stuff in your review that you wanted to go into a little bit more detail on that we didn't have time for in the actual review, right? Was there anything you didn't kind of touch on there that you wanted to expand on?
I talk about how Fatal Fury exists as, an alternative to Street Fighter 6. And I don't mean to say that in any way to take away from anything that Street Fighter 6 does. I talk about throw loops. And for those that don't know what a throw loop is, it's basically the ability to just throw someone, dash up, throw them, dash up, throw them, and you just keep on repeating it. And the safe answer is to just keep taking the throw, because if you guess wrong and they don't do a throw and they do an actual attack, you're going to lose a massive amount of life. And a lot of people kind of got frustrated with this as the life of Street Fighter 6 went on. And what Fatal Fury does is that it adds a little bit of throwing vulnerability to your wake up, so you can't just keep on getting throw looped without you being able to do something to beat it. So that was kind of all I was going with there. If you're sick of throw loops, you're sick of certain things that Street Fighter 6 does, Fatal Fury exists as a very similar style of experience that doesn't have some of those things. And that was kind of all I really wanted to dig into that. I don't want to take away from Street Fighter 6. It's still one of my favorite games out there. I gave it a 9. And Fatal Fury just, exists as this, it's the Pepsi to Street Fighter's Coke, basically.
You've already touched on this a little bit, but that's one of the great things about fighting games is that this nuance matters, and there can be different flavors of a similar sort of thing, and that doesn't make any one lesser just because they're similar or slightly different or whatever. You can have your preference, you can go where you want to go, you can play the games that maybe your friends are playing or whatever.
I also didn't really touch upon the music in the review all that much. I think the music in this game is really, really good. There's a couple of really good updated takes on the classic Fatal Fury soundtrack, which you can hear in the music of the video review. And it's just all really, really solid. Just presentation wise, outside of the menus, which are not good, I really, really like the look of this game, the look and sound of this game.
At least the presentation is right where it counts, which is in-game.
Right.
Well, Mitchell, thank you very much for joining us, getting a little more into your thoughts about Fatal Fury, your fighting game tastes, all that sort of stuff. If you want more recent action games, you can check out our reviews of South of Midnight or the first Berserker Kazan. And for everything else, stick with IGN.